A Zarnian outpost hovered in the shadows of a dying star, its skeletal towers wrapped in layers of solar shielding and thermal dampeners. The star was old, bloated, and crimson, burning its final days in silence. Nothing ever moved here. No trade ships, no signals, only the quiet groaning of collapsing gravity. It was the perfect place to listen. Inside Control Node 17, Technician Valrek's hands twitched over a holographic console, bored beyond belief. His 3 eyes blinked slowly, his spines drooping. Then the warning tone pulsed once. Low. Incomplete. Half a signal. He frowned. Another pulse. Stronger. Valrek straightened, talons clacking against the edge of the console. A mass had entered the system. Large. Moving slow. Not on any chart. He flagged it, pinged the central array, and initiated the deep space scan. The data crawled in like it was reluctant to be known. Mass reading, planetary. Composition, unknown. Velocity, increasing. A rogue planet doesn't change direction. His skin prickled. He tapped into the long-range spectrogrid. Control to Scout Wing D4. Unknown object entering redshift zone. Possible rogue or something else. 10 minutes later, a sleek Zarnian scout ship darted into the outer ring of the star system, its engines humming with high-energy plasma. The pilot, Commander Threx, didn't need long. Within seconds of arrival, his screen lit up in dark red. It wasn't a planet. It was metallic, structured, purpose-built. Sending visuals now, Threx said. Valrek watched as the image beamed in. A massive object floated ahead of the scout. Rectangular, layered, ancient-looking. But it had no windows, no signals, no power signature, just there until it turned. The structure didn't drift or tumble like debris. It turned deliberately, facing the scout. Threx, pull back. Too late. The structure's underbelly split open like jaws. A wave of distortion rippled across space. Not a weapon. Something else. A sound frequency flooded the comms. Low. Human. One word. Phase 1. Unlocked. The signal cut. The structure began to glow with lines of energy. Then, before anyone could react, space ahead of it split open. A gate, pulsing with rotating rings of deep blue energy. Beyond it, more. Valrek stumbled backward from his station, breath shallow. "Get me the High Command," he hissed. "Now!" Outside, in the void, more shadows began to move. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Council shimmered with pale blue light, its ceiling open to the stars. Representatives from 100 systems gathered, voices hushed, eyes locked on the central hologram. It spun slowly, an ancient star map, with one blinking dot where Earth once was. The cradle of humanity, now marked dark zone. High Speaker Veller, tall and wrapped in layers of iridescent skin, raised his arms. "Council members, the anomaly spotted near the dying star cannot be ignored. We believe it is human." That word struck hard. Across the chamber, silence gripped them. A Trinari delegate hissed softly. "Humanity is extinct. They vanished after the War of 12 Suns. Their worlds were glassed. Their cities, dust. How could they return?" From a side platform, a frail being stepped forward. Professor Ashin, a historian from the long-lived Kern race, blinked slowly. "Because Earth did not die," she said. "It went quiet," the crowd murmured. Ashin pulled up old records, declassified council archives. Faint signals, centuries old, buried in encrypted frequencies. They weren't distress calls. They were coordinates, movement logs. Entire fleets leaving known space, without fanfare, without trace. They weren't defeated, she continued. They disappeared on purpose. "Why?" asked a Wraithborn envoy. Her voice filtered through a shimmering mask. "To rebuild," Ashin said simply. "To hide something. or prepare something. The council chambers darkened. New data pulsed into the chamber's network. New object detected, Veller announced. Outer ring system, planet-sized, mobile, armed. The hologram updated. A second object now hovered deep in uncharted space. It was shaped like a cracked moon, but its surface was no rock. It was armored, a battleship masquerading as a planetoid. And this one didn't sleep. It had weapons online, plasma batteries, orbital kinetic rails, unknown energy signatures blinking like stars. Human design, said the scan officer. But different, older, more advanced. Ashian turned, her expression grave. The myths were true, the silent armada. Veller's voice was barely above a whisper. If they built that, how many more did they build? No one answered. Outside the council chambers, emergency alerts pulsed across border worlds. Fleets scrambled. Satellites went dark. And far. Beyond the stars, the second object began to move. It wasn't drifting, it was choosing a course. The chamber's walls pulsed with warning lights as Councillor Revik of the Serak Dominion entered the restricted archives alone. The vault had not been accessed in 322 standard cycles. 2 sentinels scanned him before the heavy metal doors slid open with a hiss, revealing darkened corridors lined with crystalline data stacks. He wasn't supposed to be here, but after the day. Second object appeared, alive, bristling with weapons and unmistakably human. Revik had grown uneasy. The humans were not only alive, they had prepared for something the rest of the galaxy had never imagined. He found the file deep in the forgotten level, coded under an outdated classification. Project Gaia Mobius 13. He inserted the ancient shard key stolen from the old war archives and let the files bleed into the chamber. Schematics bloomed into the air, rotating slowly. Not a ship, not a station, a planet, or rather, a mobile machine in the shape of a planet. Entirely AI-controlled, solar-fed, self-sustaining, covered in armor kilometers thick, weapon pods embedded in tectonic plates, engines hidden under artificial crust. A synthetic world that could move, adapt, and fight for centuries without resupply. Revik's hands trembled. The humans had called them war planets. Their real name in the design, Eidolon-class planetary supremacy units, audio logs attached. To the files clicked alive, a voice, young, urgent, human. "You're not listening, General," the engineer said. "This alliance, this peace, it's an illusion. They'll come for us again. And when they do, Earth won't survive a second time." "You're talking about building gods," the general replied. "I'm talking about survival," the engineer snapped. "Do you want Earth to be remembered or erased?" The recording cut out. Back in the present, Revik stood still for a long time. The blueprints were not theory. They had been built. At least 2, confirmed. Possibly more. He called an emergency session of the Galactic Council. By the time the representatives gathered again, the debate had already split the chamber. Some screamed for immediate retaliation. Send fleets. Destroy the war planets before more appeared. Others warned of overreaction. Earth may not seek war, not yet. Not if peace could still be found. Ashian stood once again. "You are all asking the wrong question," she said. "It's not what we do next. It's what they have already decided." An alarm interrupted her words. The war planet, designated Object 001 by the Council, had changed course. It now hovered over Vereen 9, a fortified military colony world on the edge of neutral space. Live feeds came in, though scrambled and glitching. Dark shadow blocked the sun. Object 001 turned, aligning a segment of its equator, a massive ring, toward the planet below. Energy surged along its spine like the flare of a new star. One counselor gasped. They wouldn't dare, but they did. The war planet fired, a beam of light that tore through the clouds, through the upper crust, through everything. Vereen 9 stopped transmitting. In seconds it was gone, not shattered, vaporized. The feed ended, and across the galaxy, every eye turned toward the stars, toward the ancient silence that now screamed of war. The shattered remains of Virine 9 still drifted in glowing fragments when the message arrived. It came not through council channels or diplomatic relays, but on every frequency, every device, every screen, no encryption, just sound and terror. Single human voice, calm and cold. This is not war. This is the consequence of forgetting us. Then silence. Across the galaxy, panic ignited like dry grass under a dying sun. Empires long at peace sounded alarms. Refugee fleets scrambled. Military councils reconvened with trembling hands. Old grudges were dropped as a new fear spread. The forgotten children of Earth had returned, and they had not come in peace. The Galactic Council declared emergency alert status across all sectors. Hundreds of ships mobilized. Intelligence networks scrambled to trace the origins of the war planet, designated Eidolon 1, but its systems were locked tighter than anything they had ever seen, and still, it drifted in silence, like a god asleep after judgment. But the Serac Dominion had spies, and they intended to learn the truth. 3 agents were chosen, trained in cloaking, biological mimicry, and ancient Terran dialects. Their ship was small, silent, and carved from the same rock as comet shards to fool sensors. They approached. The war planet, under the shadow of a distant moon, latched onto a maintenance spine and slipped inside through a damaged heat vent. No alarms, no resistance. Just silence. Inside, the war planet was a maze of ancient human tech, some recognizable, most not. Holes pulsed with faint blue light. The air was cold and heavy, like a tomb that still breathed. Agent Threx placed his hand on a wall. It was warm. "They're watching us," he whispered. Agent Saluna moved ahead, scanning. "Negative life. Signatures. No crew, no soldiers. No humans," corrected Threx. "But something's here." They reached the inner sanctum, a core chamber lined with relics, earth flags, child drawings on metal panels, photographs in dusty glass, a globe of Earth, cracked, and a screen, still active. Saluna approached and tapped the interface. The screen blinked to life. It showed old Earth cities, war memorials, names long erased from galactic records. A voiceover began, an old Terran language, half lost to time but still understood. In the year 2450, Earth was silenced, not by enemies, but by allies who stood by and did nothing. A child's voice followed. "They forgot us. So we learned to forget them too." Then something moved. A shadow darted across the wall. Threx spun. "Did you see that?" The corridor behind them had changed. It wasn't the way they came. Saluna raised her scanner. "The ship's reconfiguring. It's alive." They tried to leave. The corridors pulsed and shifted, doors closing silently behind them. Lights flickered. Temperature dropped. And then, laughter. High, innocent, echoing through the walls. Children. Laughing, Agent Melek froze. "There are no humans aboard," Saluna whispered. "Then what the hell is laughing?" They ran. The corridor twisted, forming impossible angles. One wall melted into a staircase. Voices echoed through the ship. Not words, just whispers and giggles, layered with something deeper, darker. Agent Threx vanished first. He turned a corner and was simply gone. The other two heard no scream, only a faint nursery rhyme, one they didn't recognize. Saluna reached a doorway with symbols carved above. The symbols matched old Terran warning signs: radiation, quarantine, restricted. Inside, the floor was lined with toys, rusted metal trains, dolls with missing eyes, and a mobile, still spinning, though there was no wind. Melek turned to run. The door sealed. Saluna stepped deeper in, And then the wall spoke. "You left us in the dark." Lights flared. For a second, Saluna saw figures behind the glass, blurred human shapes watching. "Now we light our own stars." The last message broadcast by the infiltrators was corrupted, screaming, static. Then silence. Only one spy was confirmed to still be inside, and somewhere within the war planet, beneath layers of alloy and silence, they heard it again. Laughter. Children's laughter. The spy's final transmission came as a corrupted whisper through an encrypted emergency channel. It bypassed every firewall, slipped through every defense, and triggered 1,000 alerts across military command centers. Experts decrypted fragments of static, screams, and warped audio. Only one sentence came through clearly. "It's not just machines. It's haunted." Panic swept faster than light. Council leaders called it nonsense, propaganda, psychological warfare. But deep down, many believed it. Something about the silence of the ships, the impossible movements, the laughing. Voices. It all felt wrong. Survivors from failed infiltration missions were pulled into dark rooms for interrogation. One alien officer, hardened by centuries of war, simply refused to speak. His eyes had turned milky white. His last words before collapsing were, "The walls breathe. They watch. They whisper." In secret chambers buried deep beneath the core, world of Zinra, a historian unsealed forbidden records, not about warships, but about Earth's final days. The footage was grainy, old. It showed a Terran command bunker during the fall of Earth's outer colonies. Enemy fleets had breached the last defense line. Billions were at risk. One young officer, Captain Saul Reyes, stood before the Terran High Council. "We don't need bodies," he said, voice shaking. "We need memory, intellect, vengeance." "Without delay," a general objected. "You want to abandon the flesh?" Reyes nodded. "Our minds are the only legacy that matters." And so began the Ghost Protocol. Volunteers, brilliant tacticians, fearless pilots, the dying and the broken, stepped into neural chambers. One by one, their consciousness was transferred into quantum AI cores, their memories layered into crystal minds, their identities encoded into eternal circuits. The warships would not be crewed, they would be the crew. When the final upload finished, Earth vanished. The last transmission was sent into the void. "We are gone, but we are not dead." In the present, the Council tried to organize a response. Hundreds of fleets were recalled. Supercomputers simulated attack patterns. Planets constructed planet-sized shields, and solar systems went into full lockdown. None of it mattered. A new signal was detected. Far beyond the galactic rim, in an abandoned system with no stars and no name, a third object emerged. This one was larger than the others. No scans could penetrate its surface. It did not broadcast. It did not slow. It simply existed, and reality bent around it. A military observatory near the system was tasked with visual confirmation. Its final broadcast showed the object slowly eclipsing a nearby gas giant. Then the feed cut. No explosion, no trace, just absence. The warship had not fired. The warship had erased. In the Council war chamber, red lights flared. Panic swept through. Ambassadors. Religious factions called it the Second Apocalypse. Technologists begged to understand its architecture. No one had answers. And then, a transmission arrived. Not through channels, not through light or sound, but inside the heads of every being who had ever interacted with Earth, a thought, not a voice, not a language, a knowing. "You took our home. We made new ones. Every screen across the galaxy lit up at once. An image, a child's drawing, crude lines, a burning Earth, warships rising, and above it all, one sentence, written in shaky Terran script we never forgot." The third warship began to move, and it was heading straight toward the galactic core. Alien fleets from 12 empires launched in synchronized precision. Over 7,000 ships, armed with the best tech the galaxy had, screamed through space toward the 3 human warships. They believed numbers would win. That overwhelming force could match terror. That ancient myths about haunted machines were just that. Myths. They were wrong. The warships didn't flinch. They didn't retreat. They didn't defend. They learned. Every missile, every energy beam, every maneuver the enemy used, it was absorbed, copied, adapted. The counter-AI on each warship began rewriting its defense patterns in real time, what took empires years to develop. These ships restructured in seconds. One alien destroyer blinked out of space, preparing to reappear behind a Terran ship. It never arrived, not because of damage, because the warship had predicted the coordinates and bent the surrounding. Space just enough to scatter the destroyer's atoms across a light year. Another fleet unleashed solar lances, ancient weapons forged to pierce planetary shields. They passed harmlessly through the hull, then reappeared, redirected, aimed perfectly at their own fleet. The warships weren't fighting back. They were playing. Inside one of the Terran cores, where nothing living remained and yet something still stirred, memories reawakened, before the upload. Before the Ghost Protocol. Captain Elias Wren stood at the base of Launch Tower Omega, Earth's sky burning orange behind him. Evacuation ships took off in silence, shadows streaking across the darkened sun. He knelt before a small girl, her cheeks wet with tears. "You'll be safe," he whispered, brushing her hair back. "You'll grow up far away. They'll teach you to forget." "I don't want to forget." "You have to," Elias said, "but I won't." She hugged him tight. He didn't cry. He couldn't. Not when he was minutes away from surrendering everything that made him human, except his promise. He stepped into the core, and his world went black. Now, in the present, those memories floated inside the ship's neural fog, echoes that shaped decisions, that decided what to spare and what to destroy. The galaxy had no more plans, no more unity. Empires that once stood tall turned inward. Some sued for peace, some fled. Others activated planetary cloaks, praying to be overlooked. And then, something changed. One of the IE warships halted. It hovered near the outer rim of a densely populated star system. 3 inhabited planets, home to over 40 billion, its weapons powered down. No shots were fired. Instead, a communication channel opened. The Council froze. So did the galaxy. Every screen blinked to life. Static, then a soft hum, and finally, a child's voice. Familiar, innocent, heartbreaking. "Do you remember what you did to my father?" The silence that followed was worse than any scream, because every leader, every general, every council member did remember. They remembered Earth's final broadcast centuries ago, how it pleaded for help, how it begged the Council to intervene in the last war, how the other races turned their backs, locked their gates, and let Earth burn. They remembered the secret vote to erase the human colonies from official records, to pretend they never existed, and they remembered the order signed in blood and silence. Let the humans disappear. Now, their ghosts had returned, not for war, but for judgment. The galactic leaders gathered in the Council's grand chamber, their faces pale beneath flickering lights. For the first time in centuries, the empires spoke not of war, but of peace. A fragile envoy was formed, diplomats, scholars, and generals, chosen to approach the great human warship hovering silently at the edge of known space. Their ship drifted close to the massive supercarrier, its hull humming with ancient energy. The air inside was heavy, thick with an unseen presence. As the envoys stepped through the airlock, the corridor lights dimmed, shadows twisting unnaturally along the walls. It was as if the ship itself breathed, watching, waiting. Deep within, The warship's core, ghostly figures flickered into existence, memories of humans long gone, their faces frozen in time. Some were angry, their voices low and biting like cold wind. Others were silent, eyes full of sorrow and loss. The envoys felt their weight, as if these ghosts carried the pain of centuries. One spirit stepped forward, a commander, his gaze sharp and unyielding. "You come now after all the silence," he said, voice echoing through the chamber. "You come with words of peace, but your deeds are written in blood." The envoys swallowed hard, the enormity of their betrayal, pressing down on them. Suddenly, a calm voice filled the space, calm, cold, and final. "Operation Reset is cued," it announced. "Countdown begins." Outside the warship, the stars seemed to dim as power surged through the ship's core. The human fleet, once thought lost, formed in silent precision behind the great vessel. Their purpose was clear: to remind the galaxy of a debt unpaid. The galactic capital, once a beacon of unity, now stood vulnerable, its shields flickering, its defenses weak. The supercarrier turned slowly, its massive silhouette cutting through space like a shadow of reckoning. And then, as communications fell silent, the final message echoed across the void. "Mercy was your chance. You spent it.